Imagine living in a time where there was always a lurking threat of nuclear warfare, of death and misery, all because of the leaders of your country. Well, the early 1960s was a very scary time for Americans. America was deeply involved in the Cold War with Russia, and many American citizens were frightened and fed up with their nation. Many people believed that there was no reason for them to be involved in such a war. It was obvious that someone should make a stand. They wanted someone who could voice their discontent, someone who already has rebelled against the leaders and politicians, someone by the name of Bob Dylan. Enter Masters of War. Dylan's song was an angry and fierce tone against the military-industrial complex. It supported the nation's view at large, and perhaps it was the catalyst that the nation needed.
Come your masters of war.
Bob Dylan's Masters of War is one of the most significant protest songs of all time. The song was released on the Freewheeling album in '63. Dylan was very knowledgeable about the conflicting time period in which he was living, having written the song in his early 20s. The Cold War was in full effect, and the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the United States and the USSR to the verge of a nuclear disaster. Masters of War protests not only the Vietnam or Cold War, but war in general. It demonstrates the real nature of war. It showcases that the only one who profits are the ones safe at home, while normal and often young people are forced to go out and fight. The song also discusses philosophical questions, such as whether a war can be really won when losses are sky high on both sides. And the lyrics of the song prove just how disgusted he really was with the war profiteers.
Come your masters of war. You that build all the guns. You that build the death planes. You that build the big bombs. You that hide behind walls. You that hide behind desks. I just want you to know I can see through your masks.
While the first verse sets the stage of who we are speaking against, the narrator continues in the second verse with announcing that he himself also is used as a pawn.
You put a gun in my hand, and you hide from my eyes. Then you turn and run farther when the fast bullets fly.
Halfway through the song, there's a point of contrast. The you of the song is wealthy and safe, while the us ends up dead.
You hide in your mansion, where the young people's blood flows out of their bodies and is buried in the mud.
Dylan continues to sing about the fact how the you of the song won't be forgiven by Jesus, how his money will become worthless once he dies, and that his soul will be lost. And the last verse delivers the most violent part of the song.
And I hope that you die, and your death will come soon. And follow your casket for the pale afternoon. And I'll watch for you, Lord, down to your deathbed. And I'll stand over your grave till I'm sure that you're dead.
The song is a reaction to the last straw, a feeling of what can you do. In the song, Dylan allows the listener no opportunity to see the issue from another perspective. There's a clear line between the I and the you of the song, and the you is very wrong, even so wrong that the narrator wishes them dead. He turns the topic of the song into a horror story, into a movie in which the wrongdoer is pursued by a vengeful spirit. Dylan's use of words has always been very truthful and perhaps harmful if not in search of boundaries. Dylan never before or since sang words so openly violent. Masters of War is a musical masterpiece, and the song proves to be still relevant today. As Grail Marcus, an American author, says, "It's the elegance of the melody and the extremism of the words that attract people the way the song does go too far, to the limits of free speech. It gives people permission to go that far." The outrage in the song is almost acceptable. It's a vehicle for all those dangerous and non-pacifistic emotions to express. The feeling of hating violence so much that all you want to do is match it with violence of your own. It's fighting fire with fire, although stated by Dylan himself, "This here ain't a protest song or anything like that, because I don't write protest songs. I'm just writing it as something to be said for somebody, by somebody. And that is perhaps the beauty of the song. Dylan performed the song in 1991 while America was in the midst of the Persian Gulf War. He performed it again in 1994 at a Hiroshima concert. He played it during the Kosovo conflict in 1999 and also in 2003 during the Iraq War. The song relates to previous wars and conflicts and every war that is going on right now. This is the driving force behind the song, the extremity of the limits of freedom of speech and the hateful words that are put throughout it. The song was a reaction to what the current events were at the time and who was causing them. But there's more to it than just the lyrics. Dylan loves to use existing melodies for his songs, and he did the same with Masters of War. The song's melody was adapted from a song called Nottingham Town, which isn't written in a major or minor key, something that the majority of every song is. Instead, it is in a harmony called Dorian mode. Dorian mode is a symmetric scale since the pattern of whole and half steps is the same ascending or descending. This gives Masters of War its repetitive sound. Dylan of course used the guitar, with a capo on a 3rd fret and a drop G tuning. This makes the song 3 semitones higher, but it doesn't change the relationship between those notes. The repetitive text and droning harmony works hand in hand to drive home the singer's perspective. But back to the lyrics. The song is a response to a speech given by President Eisenhower. In his farewell speech, he warned about the military-industrial complex, and this remark is the spark that ignited Dylan's rage. After the release, Dylan said, "It's not an anti-war song, it's speaking against what Eisenhower was saying. It was meant as a realization of the times, what war was coming to and why war became a pointless act rather than a means of defense. It is the military-industrial complex itself who wants to convince everybody that a world war can be won, because otherwise there's no need to buy more bullets, tanks or guns. It's a cash machine for those that are able to profit off of it, and it's a major opportunity for some companies to benefit from it." Dylan wrote this song in criticism. At this point in his career, he is no stranger to protest songs. Blowing in the Wind is speaking about freedom, war and peace, while a song like Talkin' John Birch Blues is about communists and its relationship with America. And the list can go on and on really. But Masters of War was different. This one stood out because of the violence, especially in the last verse, in which Dylan brutally calls for death. These men that feed the global war machine aren't worthy of living in a narrator's eyes. And like Fidel Castro later admitted regarding the Cuban Missile Crisis, "I would have agreed to the use of nuclear weapons. We took it for granted that it would become a nuclear war anyway and that we were going to disappear." So the narrator's point of view is spot on in this song. It's supposed to be a pacifistic song against war, not an anti-war song. Pacifism is the opposition to war and violence, and it covers a spectrum of views, including the belief that disputes can and should be resolved peacefully, which does speak somewhat against the line in which the narrator wants someone dead, although there's no use of violence, so it might be justified. The military industry is still out there, although changed. Communism is still alive, and as of writing, the Taliban is still invading and taking over Afghanistan. War might not be relevant to you personally, but there are millions of people in trouble because of it, and many who lost a brother or sister or child in one. Dylan was never so forthright in his other songs, and he even surprised himself with the lyrics. "I've never written anything like that before. I don't sing songs which hope people will die, but I couldn't help it with this one." While songwriting is the strength of Dylan's career, rudeness is what created Masters of War. A more people-pleasing character perhaps like Pete Seeger or Dave Van Ronk or anyone in the folk scene at the time would not have been able to write such a violent song, nor powered the message behind it in a way like Bob Dylan could, creating a song that is still relevant today. Thank you for watching. Bob Dylan for me personally is one of the most influential musicians out there. I've been highly interested in his musical career as well as his attitude towards life, and therefore I highly recommend reading Chronicles Volume 1 if you're interested in not only Dylan's life but also the folk revival scene of the 60s in New York City. I've used a lot of resources for this video and they will be linked in the description. Again, thank you.